And welcome back to Coaching with the Bible. This week, Balak on focus. We've talked about a lot of different subjects. We've learned a lot of different things together. And this week's Torah reading has for many years sort of perplexed me. I don't know another word. I've had trouble understanding the reasoning behind its appearance in the Bible. Bilaam is an interesting and different and unique character. Certainly the praises that he offers rather than the curses that he is meant to offer are fascinating and interesting and have impact for us for millennia. Some of it has even worked its way into our liturgy as a key portion and a key term and a key verse that we say in our liturgy on a day-to-day basis. But I did want to focus actually this week not on Bilaam and really focus on Balak. One, because I think he does get overlooked and overshadowed by the specter and the size and scope of the personality that is Bilaam, but also, two, to perhaps bring out another understanding as to why we read this story at all, and that it's not just simply some midrashic text or Agadic text that's brought down in the Talmud somewhere. And the reason I say that is because the people themselves, until the end, don't appear. The people of Israel don't appear in this story at all. Moses, not there at all. To the degree by which I always wondered whether or not they even have any clue as to whether or not this is actually happening. Because it's not happening in their camp. It's happening at a great distance from where they're encamped and where they're located and what they're focused on. They're now in the last moments of their time in the desert. They're about to enter the land of Israel. And this is happening somewhere around them. It's happening to them on some degree, at least the intent is that it's happening to them. But it's happening around them in some way, and they're maybe not aware of what's happening around them. And this conversation or this back and forth, this interaction between Bilaam and Balak is interesting. And it's interesting for us to read about. But what's it doing here? And so what I wanted to focus in on this week is this notion of focus, but focus to the point of obsession, to the point of preoccupation, to the point of which it's beyond the norm. Preoccupation, possession, fixation, almost to the point of being fanatical, taken by something. That is not Bilaam. That is Balak. Balak is obsessed with the notion of the people of Israel. He is deeply concerned and afraid and worried about that group of people attacking his people, the people of Moab, and destroying them. He has seen that happen to other nations, and he is deeply concerned. Does he have a reason to be concerned? It's not clear that the people themselves have any interest in attacking him. That is not made clear by the Bible. That is not made explicit in the text. In fact, the wars that they actually went and fought were not wars that they went to fight on offense, meaning that they went out to attack. It appears from the text in last week's reading that the people of Israel were more interested in avoiding these battles, but when the battle came to them, they were willing to fight and to fight hard and to win. So Balak, though, has seen this happen, and now as the king is deeply concerned. And so he goes about this whole process of bringing in Bilaam, this very well-known prophet, magician, whatever you want to call him, to curse the people of Israel with the hope that in cursing the people of Israel, he will then be able to defeat them in war. That's the premise of the whole story. That's an interesting story, but what's it doing here? And so I think perhaps what it's doing here is actually beyond what it's doing here with respect to clearly learning all the stories about Bilaam and his donkey and the angel in the road and God not allowing Bilaam to curse the people but rather bless them, and having the opportunity to bless the people multiple times and multiple occasions in this story. There's a lot of that. But I think an undercurrent here, we lose sight of Balak. And I don't want to lose sight of Balak, because of the concept of obsession or focus to the point of obsession or preoccupation. Because I actually think that's a deep lesson for the people of Israel right now. Not now, meaning today, but in the Bible itself, in terms of the progression of what's going on. And I think it's perhaps something we can think about. And from the standpoint of coaching with the Bible, focus is crucial. There's no other way to say that. Focus is crucial. It's vital for success. Without it, we're not getting anywhere. And so what I want to sort of keep in mind is the following thing. The people are about to enter the land of Israel. They're about to take on the responsibility of settling and building and cultivating the land and the society and the community and the world according to what God has envisioned in that land. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen simply by just showing up. It's going to take a single-minded, focused obsession, to some degree, well, I'll call it a good obsession, to be able to make that happen. Focusing on the goals, focusing on the big tasks, not letting little things get in the way, avoiding the stumbling blocks, steering clear of danger, staying away from temptation, and being singularly focused on the goal. To that point, the people of Israel perhaps are not yet there. But Balak teaches that to us in this week's portion. He reminds us to some degree of Pharaoh in the sense that when the story begins, he is concerned about being overwhelmed by the people of Israel in the same way that Pharaoh at the beginning of the book of Exodus is concerned, or at least feigns concern, and uses that as the excuse that they may overwhelm and overrun the Egyptians. And so Balak is there. But Balak also is an answer to some of the behavior that has gone on till this point, and some of the behavior that's about to go on at the end of the reading as well. If you want to go up to the land, the Bible is saying, fine. Then you must be focused on this. This is a lesson hard learned by the people 39 years earlier when the spies went and it was not successful, and they came back and the people complained and they cried and they weren't willing to go. And then the next day they went and they were destroyed, what are known as the Ma'apilim, that group of people who went the day after the spies returned, and Moses warned them and they failed and they were destroyed. That group was destroyed. Balak's single-minded, focused obsession on destroying the people of Israel, or defeating them, holding them off, is a lesson needed to be heard and learned. And so he invests heavily in Bilaam, heavily into this idea, because he does not see another way. He senses his people are weak, he senses his people are afraid, and that by bringing in someone like a prophet to curse the enemy will provide them with the motivation and the confidence necessary to fight the battle that they're going to need to fight. Those are not my words. That actually appears in the commentary known as the Malbim, who we have not mentioned in many weeks. But take a look at the Malbim's commentary there at the beginning of this week's reading, where he talks about Balak, and he talks about what the goal here is and what Balak's goal and mindset is about. And so it's important for us to think about focus, to focus on focus, and to become that. Whether it's the people of Israel at the time, whether it's for us now. There are a myriad of distractions that go on in life. There are so many things that keep us from being focused and directed and preoccupied with the things that we probably should be preoccupied with and not with the things that we should not be preoccupied with. Let me say that more simply. It is vital and important and crucial for us to really focus in on the bigger picture and the bigger goals. And too often we allow for the distraction or the excuse to get in the way. And so focus is really important. Balak, 3 different times, takes Bilaam to 3 different locations to curse the people. He sends 2 different groups of leaders, princes, important people to honor Bilaam to get him to come. He invests in sacrifices and in building altars in multiple locations. He is willing to sacrifice financially in a huge way for Bilaam to successfully curse the people. He's invested. He's focused. He has an idea. He has a plan. He has something he wants to accomplish. Boom. Nothing is going to deter him. No stumbling block, no issue, no problem, no concern. Nothing is getting in his way. And that type of determination is what's necessary for the people of Israel when they're going to go into the land and they're going to settle the land. And when they're going to do that without Moses and without Aaron and without Miriam, and they're going to do that with the leadership of God and the Bible as their guide, and the lifestyle that they're going to live and lead in the community and the culture that they're going to cultivate. Focus. Getting to focus. Getting to a place where we can be single-minded and obsessed in that way. So how do we get to focus? So here's 2 things, because there's a lot. Obviously, avoiding stumbling blocks and not allowing them to get in our way is important. Setting goals, we've talked about a myriad of times, obviously crucial for success in getting focused. Prioritizing on those goals, because we have a lot of goals and we have a lot of things we want to accomplish. But establishing the number 1, number 2 things that absolutely have to get done in our day, in our week, in our month, in our year, in our life. Putting those at the top of the pedestal and avoiding at all costs these other kinds of ideas, these other things we want to accomplish. Saying no. We've talked about that. Saying no. There are times when things come our way that are interesting or we want to do them, but they're certainly going to take up our time and our mental and our physical resources, and they'll deplete us, not energize us. They'll deplete us and we'll be unable to focus on the larger, bigger picture goal. So saying no. But really for focus, I want to center in on 2 ideas here. These come to us by way of James Clear, who I've mentioned many times. And you can also see this in a lot of different religious texts and commentaries, books that talk about, that are Musar books in nature, that are coming to help us work on our ethics and our values. The first thing is to measure your results. James Clear is the one who I mentioned many times, who talks about atomic habits and how to build great habits. So in the conversation about building great habits, he talks about how to build focus. Number 1 is to measure your results. When we measure the results, and we know that we're going to measure our results, we get more focused. When we work on, how many, let's say it's an exercise routine, how many reps we do, and then we measure, we get better. And we get focused on getting better because I've measured what I did before and now I want to get better from where I was. If we have no measurement, then we're happy with what we've done. In the work that I do with fundraising and organizations and campaigns, so we always ask people to put goals on their pages. If they're going to raise a certain amount of money, to put a goal down on their page, because the goal is a measure. And so you're looking at yourself in comparison to your own measurement and in comparison to everyone else's measurements. And as you're working on that measurement, you're looking at how well I'm doing, how well I'm going, how well I'm progressing. That provides you with focus. Because too often there's so many things that are going on that don't allow us to focus. And if we don't have a goal and there's no number, then we feel good about doing one thing. We feel good about doing two things, but we don't actually get anywhere. We don't actually accomplish enough. And we do need that single-minded focus and obsession to some degree in all these different things. The second thing that he mentions, and I'll mention here today because there are so many things to talk about with respect to focus, is to really focus in on the process, not the event. Focus in on the process, not the event. So here's an example. His example is a great example. Many people see health as an event. If I lose 20 pounds, then I'll be in shape. But what we really need to think about is building the process and living and loving the process. I talked a little bit about that last week when I talked about discipline, living and loving the process. The event is being, to some degree at the end is being in shape, but the only really way to get there is to fall in love with the process of exercising, or fall in love with the idea that the result will be great. There are a lot of people who don't love exercising, but they do it because they know that what it does for them. They know what it brings for them. Someone wants to be a great writer. It'll be great to come out at the end of the day with a great book having been published. But the only way to really get there is to fall in love with the idea that week to week, I have to produce, I have to write a chapter, I have to edit a chapter, I have to talk out a chapter, whatever those things may be. So we have to fall in love with the process of building and building and building and building and building. And those two things really help a person obsess, for lack of a better term, but I think it's a good term here, a good obsession about focus, getting obsessed, getting preoccupied about these other things, because we want it from as a religious community. We're talking about it for the sake of building a greater society and greater and fulfilling the manifest destiny of the people. But leaving religiosity aside and community aside, for us as individuals in our own personal lives and trying to accomplish and succeed and to fulfill life's goals, then minimally, we need to do these two things. We want to focus on measuring our goals. The measurement of the goal will help us focus on the goal, will help us succeed, will help us show us where we are in our process. And two, we want to focus on the process and not on the event. The event is sort of the end game, let's say. We need to focus on the process here. Too often, as I see in my work, people dilly-dally around getting focused on the tasks at hand and getting the work done, getting the tasks done, ticking things off the list, building towards that success, even if they know it intellectually. We talked about the idea many weeks ago about the idea of belief and of passion, but passion alone isn't enough. Obsession and focus on the process and focus on the result will ultimately get us to the result. So Balak teaches us something different than what Bilaam teaches us. Whereas Bilaam teaches us and focuses in on many other things and many important things, Balak teaches us and is teaching the people at the time there this important lesson about getting preoccupied and getting really zeroed in and zoomed in and focused on the bigger picture. That's Coaching with the Bible for this week. See you next week. Those of you celebrating, have a Shabbat Shalom.